Joining us now for this morning's intelligence briefing, my old congressional colleague, Pete Hoekstra, former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Pete, we appreciate your time. Thanks for Skyping in here on America's Forum.
Thank you. Good morning.
Pete, there's a lot going on. John Bachman talked about the Sony hack and what went on with North Korea, and we're going to get to that in a second. But right now, we're hearing reports, even within the last hour, that there may be some sort of ceasefire in Yemen. This after rebels even seized control of the state-run media there. What are you hearing from your sources about what's going on there in Yemen?
Well, a couple of things that we do know about Yemen. Number one, there's never been a strong, stable central government. Much like many of these countries in this part of the world, the central government in many cases just controls the capital. In this case, it would control Sana'a. In Afghanistan, we've always talked about the central government of Afghanistan is nothing more, the president of Afghanistan is nothing more than the mayor of Kabul. But what I'm hearing is, yes, that there are activities going on that are threatening whatever central government there is in Yemen. There could be a coup attempt here. But the important thing to the U.S., in our interest, is the continuing instability in Yemen that provides a safe haven for al-Qaeda on the Arabian Peninsula to plan, prepare, and train attacks for Europe, other parts of the Middle East, and yes, the United States of America.
How are you concerned, or how concerned are you about the U.S. Embassy out there?
I'm very concerned. I visited Yemen. I visited the capital and the embassy in 2010, right after the underwear bomber, the attack, or the attempted attack on a plane coming into Detroit. And it was made very clear to me, Pete, you can come in, but you can come in in the morning, but by late afternoon, we're going to get you on a plane and we're going to get you out of town. You know, we've removed a lot of people from the embassy in Yemen. We have just a core group there. Yeah, it's not a very safe place to be for American nationals or for Americans or Yemeni nationals who work at our embassy. It's a dangerous place.
Do you think they should be evacuated?
Well, that's a decision for the ambassador, the State Department, the military, U.S. military that's on the ground there, that know the exact circumstances at this point. The real question is the threat in Sana'a against the central government, do they include the United States into their threat calculation? Do they want to attack not only the central government, but also the Western embassies? And at this point in time, I'm not sure that we know that. I do know that the British ambassador and other ambassadors are trying to negotiate a ceasefire. I'm not sure how much good that will do.
Well, as they attempt to negotiate that ceasefire, Pete, we've got a couple of minutes remaining, and I'd like you to outline what happens. Let's say the coup continues. Does that set up a situation with a vacuum where al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula could really tighten its grip on the entire nation of Yemen?
Yeah, I really don't think, whether there's a coup or not in the next hours or in the next couple of days, JD, whether that's really going to have a significant impact on the ability of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Bottom line, they've had free reign in large parts of Yemen already. Sure, the central government has allowed drone strikes and those types of things. The instability around the capital, that will probably help al-Qaeda to a certain extent, but we shouldn't be kidding ourselves that the central government in the United States had al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula on the run. They've had free reign in much of that country.
And Pete, we are getting reports that the president's mansion in Yemen may have actually fallen to the rebels. We will continue to follow it. But when you were saying even more comparatively placid times, when you went into the embassy and they wouldn't allow you to stay overnight, that speaks volumes as to the danger in Yemen. And that will be a continuing problem we will continue to monitor. Pete, we want you to stand by because we'd like to continue this intelligence briefing. We will turn our attention to the modern, the miracle of modern computers and how they can work for us in terms of cyber attack. Very interesting story about how we knew the North Koreans were up to what they were up to in hacking Sony. All that and more when we come back with Pete Hoekstra right after this timeout. Alongside Miranda Kahn, J.D. Hayworth back with you on America's Forum. Also back with us, my old House colleague Pete Hoekstra, the former chairman of the Intelligence Committee on that side of Capitol Hill. Pete, as we continue with this intelligence briefing, let's begin with an item from the place where you and I used to work, and that is the House of Representatives. Nancy Pelosi appointed Congressman Andre Carson of Indiana, who converted to Islam, to the House Intelligence Committee. We know the Constitution has a prohibition on any type of religious test, but does that appointment concern you?
No, it doesn't, JD. That's a place that we don't need to go. I don't question his loyalty to America, his loyalty to our national security. That's an area that, as far as I'm concerned, at this point, is totally off base for challenging the minority leader for that selection.
Pete, we brought up earlier during our Newsmax Now update that the New York Times reports that an NSA operation penetrated North Korea's computer network back in 2010. What have you heard about the NSA project?
Well, I can't get into what I was briefed on when I was the chairman or the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee at that time. But what I can tell you again is, number one, the NSA, they have some of the best cyber people in the world. Sure, they had the massive failure with the Snowden leak, but in terms of offensive capabilities coming out of NSA, they're very, very good. And the interesting thing here, what this brings up, is there's a whole other level of warfare going on in the world today. It's, we can talk about military operations that make the front page. We can talk about sanctions that try to influence political and behavior. But then there's this whole world of cyberspace where there's no rules, and where right now offense rules. People are and countries are much better on offense in cyber than what they are on defense, and countries are using these offensive capabilities to understand and to gain insights into their enemies.
But you're saying offensively we're really good, but 2014 has been referred to as a year of cyber attacks. We had the Sony attack, JP Morgan Chase, Home Depot, Target, just to name a few. Are we really doing that great of a job preventing these type of cyber attacks?
Now, remember what I said. I said we're very, very good at offense.
Okay.
We're not very, very good at defense. And that's true for Iran. It's true for North Korea. It's true for Russia. It's true for all the people who are active in this cyberspace, people like China. We are all much better at offense than what we are at defense. And that's why you do see exactly the kind of attacks that you outlined.
Well, mindful of that, Pete, and while you cannot characterize firsthand what you went through in Congress on the Intelligence Committee or speak in specific terms about that, let's turn the page. You mentioned some of the primary international culprits, or those who are on the offense in terms of cyber warfare. Should we be concerned the very fact that defenses aren't that great right now for anybody against cyber warfare? Can we expect this year to see an escalation from the likes of China and Russia and Iran and maybe someone else attempting to attack our interests in cyberspace?
Oh, I think so, absolutely. As you see, the world's getting a much, it's much less secure than what it has been. The tensions between different countries, the new escalation in Ukraine, all of those things say that these increased tensions are going to result in countries acting, and the place where they can act, where it's difficult to identify who exactly they are and exactly what they may be trying to accomplish, is cyberspace. It's an open battlefield, and I think we've just seen the tip of the iceberg, JD, because offense is continuing to get better, and we're not seeing the same kind of commitment either in the government sector or the private sector to improve our defenses.
Pete, we got to switch gears. Since we served in Congress, dealt with a lot of issues. The president tomorrow night, State of the Union message, expected to call for a tax increase. 40 seconds, your take on the president's intentions.
Well, what the president is doing is, tax increases. It's a call for bigger government. Bigger government says when Democrats rule in Washington, that money goes to their proxies. When Republicans rule, it goes to theirs. The argument hopefully will be framed as one of big government versus smaller government. Obama's going to be arguing for much bigger government.
Fair enough. Pete Hoekstra. We even got him to comment on the proposed tax hike.
We didn't miss anything.
But we do appreciate his assessment of cyber warfare. Now, when we come back, a gentleman who had more than his share of wars on the gridiron, NFL great Fran Tarkenton, here to talk business. And overinflation of footballs? That's a controversy we'll address coming up on America's Forum.